Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran. Today I'll be covering some of the Arcane Mage changes as well as some of the general Mage changes in this video that are going to be available on the PTR. Don't worry about everybody going for big frostbolts and shattering all the... I didn't realize how loud that would be. You'd think more Arcane Mages would be around here because Arcane's got updates. Especially when it comes to GCD, Arcane has been a little bit bloated. There's a lot of abilities that you use in order to get the big damage out. So Blizzard is trying to solve some of the issues of GCD with Arcane Mages. Give them a couple new talents, which I actually am excited for since I really play a lot of Arcane of any other spec of Mage. And as well as we'll talk about some of the specific changes happening to the class in general. But anyway, with this video, I want to kind of get into some of the changes Mages have gotten recently. So Arcane finally got some love. It might not be the perfect, but I think the changes they've done so far have been quite nice. At least I really enjoy them. I really like them. Let's first talk about some of the general Mage changes that have happened recently. First of all, mirror images as an ability is no longer a massive damage buff. It's rather a defensive. They nerfed the damage of mirror images. It's still baseline, but they made it a defensive in a way. It's a 2-minute cooldown, mages last for 40 seconds, they will only frostbolt, which will add a slow effect, particularly good in PvP. And when you take damage, these mages or images disappear. While they're up, you take 20% reduced damage. So as you take hits from enemies for the next 3 hits or so, these images will disappear when you take damage. I don't know if they can all disappear at once. If let's say you're getting hit with a barrage by a hunter, or what is it? Maybe it'll be like they disappear, like, let's say you take damage and there'll be 3 seconds in between of them disappearing or whatever. So that still needs to be tested in terms of how effective they are as a defensive. But while they're up, you take 40% reduced damage, and it says they kind of will disappear and they'll absorb a hit from you. The frostbolts aren't massive in damage. You can see they're doing very little damage, but the slow they provide is quite nice. Reduced movement speed. In PvP, this is going to be pretty good. In questing, this is going to be pretty good. And now it's a defensive utility rather than an offensive utility. It was really cool to see these images doing a lot of damage, but I don't know. It's a give and take situation, and for Arcane in particular, you have a lot of cooldowns that you're kind of overlapping with one another already. So for Arcane Mages in particular, taking mirror images off as an offensive but rather a defensive, I think is interesting. Making a defensive for PvP in particular is going to be interesting too. And in dungeon situations where there's going to be one-shot mechanics, 20% less damage from enemies is going to be quite nice. It's not perfect, but I kind of like the change in the direction the Blizzard is going. Second, Rune of Power has been redesigned for all 3 specs. Rune of Power will now proc not something as you press the button with, but rather whenever you press Arcane Power, Combustion, or Icy Veins, you'll drop a Rune of Power where you stand that will last for 15 seconds, increasing your spell damage by 40% while you stand within 8 yards. So this means you will not be able to get your Rune of Power up with an intermediary burst, right? For Fire Mages, this is going to kind of suck because there were moments where you actually wouldn't have Combustion, but you could drop Rune of Power with a Meteor and get a bunch of Fire Blasts to proc Master Blaster Mastery buff. With Frost, you can even synergize it. Let's say you're playing Lonely Winter playstyle, so no pet, but more damage for Ice Lances. So you would go Rune of Power, Frozen Orb, get a bunch of those Shatter combos in. For Arcane, it doesn't really work like that, especially with the playstyle they had in BFA, where they try to maintain above 70% mana. So it's not like you just drop a Rune of Power and just kind of blast the enemy. So for Arcane, this is going to be very synergetic for all of them, because that takes a global out of the playstyle, right? One less global when you pop in your big cooldowns. But I feel like for Arcane, this is going to be exceptionally good because most of your damage, if not all of it, of the main damage is going to happen during your Arcane Power. While the other specs have intermediary bursts in between, that's just kind of how the cookie crumbles. I feel like with this change to Rune of Power, which, yes, when I press Arcane Power, it just drops under me for 15 seconds, so it lasts for quite a bit. And if you weren't aware, you do have a little bit of leeway in terms of how far you can be away from the Rune of Power and still gain its benefits. So you do have a restriction to an area, so that is going to be no different. And you will want to make sure to use this when you can't move for a while. You're going to have yourself 15 seconds of raw damage at the enemy. But if you can do that, then there's going to be one less thing on GCD. What this also does is makes Incantress Flow a appealing option, since Rune of Power was, it was blowing the other 2 options out of the water. So Incantress Flow couldn't be competitive against Rune of Power unless you're basically almost constantly moving. So in certain Mythic Plus situations, maybe there was a possibility, but in most situations Rune of Power was dominant. But with this change, maybe Catch Flow will be the go-to because it does fluctuate with power, but it's always there. So for specs that have intermediate burst, it actually might be really strong. Or Focus Magic once we see the final version of it, because Focus Magic has been the old version for quite a while. It provides you or an ally 5% crit, and when they crit, it gives you 5% crit for 10 seconds. However, it's supposed to have an 8% intellect buff on top of it as well, so constantly it'll be 10% crit between you and an ally, usually a spellcaster, and 8% I think intellect to you. But Blizzard never implemented the final version of this. Maybe they'll have something better or something different, but right now, Focus Magic is not competitive, but the better version of it would be a lot more competitive. So in Catch Flow, Focus Magic, and Rune of Power are kind of your three options available currently for your character. Arcane Power got changed, so it's no longer a 3-minute cooldown, but rather a 2-minute cooldown. I felt the 3-minute cooldown was maybe a little bit too long. It would have been synergetic with a couple of your abilities, but it kind of would have let you have your full burst and then go into Evocation. I don't really know how Evocation and Arcane Power are going to synergize since they are not on the same CD 1.5 versus 2-minute cooldown. So maybe you will delay Evocation for Arcane Power every single time. And for other situations where you don't really care about the big burst wombo combo with Arcane Power, then Evocation will be better for those playstyles. But it's going to take a second to figure out what is going to be the best. Touch of the Magi also have been changed as a new ability added to Mage's baseline. Touch of the Magi now generates 4 arcane charges. This is one of the abilities that mages would usually use as part of the burst combo. So getting yourself Touch of the Magi, and then there was another ability that also generate you the arcane charges, so it's just another global. So they fuse that talent of charge up together with Touch of the Magi. So you can get Touch of the Magi and then kind of go into your burst rotation. What's best about a Touch of the Magi is not even a talent, so it's something that's baseline for your spec out the bat. So that's really, really cool. I'm a huge fan of that. I think it's cool to add certain of these passives into other abilities to make them a powerful active. Now Touch of the Magi is now for sure going to be not a cleave ability, not an AoE ability, but an ability you'll want to use kind of regularly every 45 seconds if you can. New talent, Master of Time, has been added into level 25 row. So Master of Time is kind of like it's very similar to Displacement ability that mages are losing going from BFA into the new expansion of Shadowlands. Displacement allows for Arcane mages to have this backwards blink or blink to a previous location after a shimmer or a blink. So that's what this talent is going to be about. Reduces the cooldown of Alter Time by 30 seconds. So a 30-second Alter Time, which is a defensive. It gives you back the same health, mana, as well as places you in the same position as prior. Is this actually mana? No, actually took out the mana component, because I think for Arcane mages it would be way too strong if you gave you all that mana after spending it during burst. But Master of Time reduces the cooldown of Alter Time by 30 seconds. Alter Time resets the cooldown of Blink when you return to your original location. So let's say I pop Alter Time, like in PvP I'm trying to run away from a Death Knight, I'll use a Blink out of a Death Grip, and I'll just keep cutting the DK around for some more. I need that Blink really badly. Alter Time is about to be over, and then you come back. But and I also get my Blink back. But also you can use Alter Time when you want to. That's one of the cool things about this ability. Second time you press it, you return back to where you were. So you'll have a bit better control with it, and this could give Arcane mages a different kind of mobility. 30-second cooldown on Master of Time and Blink being a 50-second cooldown, which is on global cooldown, is going to be something for you to play around. But for Arcane mages, it's kind of like a teleport on a 30-second duration, or well, with a 10-second uptime really. So it might have some uses, it might be competitive with Shimmer, but we'll see just how good this talent is going to be. It could potentially be really good in PvP though. Resonance has been changed, so now it does 50% arcane barrage damage based by how many targets it hits instead of 10. So this ability on its own has gotten a little bit stronger, and this whole row actually has gotten a little bit different. So as you're trying to get a bunch of cleaves on enemies, I'm going to see if I can hit multiple enemies at once. When you go for barrage, I'm pretty sure the chain damage are too far from one another. Yes, they are. That damage would be increased by 15 per target hit, so that would be pretty nice. Then you have in that same row, Arcane Echo. Direct damage dealt to enemies affected by Touch of the Magi. Causes an explosion that deals arcane damage to nearby enemies. Now this number is probably going to get turned up a little bit in terms of the damage, but it looks kind of cool. So you have now this row of kind of cleave, with Resonance being Arcane Barrage does more damage per target it hits. So let's say you don't really have a lot of enemies that you can regularly barrage, but enemies that come by from time to time, drop in Arcane Echo with all your burst, and then damaging enemies into Touch of the Magi to get that big cleave damage with focus on single target. Some splash onto AoE is going to be kind of nice. And it also has an animation to it with the arcane damage that goes out. Touch of the Magi on the enemy, you can see this explosion of just purple. So if you're a huge fan of purple colors, yeah, this will be the perfect spell for you. And this works off of arcane missiles or for barrages, so every single time an ability hits Touch of the Magi, you'll also have this splash of arcane damage to nearby enemies. So maybe in a playstyle with amplification for massive amount of missiles, that could be really strong. But right now, 90 damage just doesn't seem like a lot. But we'll see, because Blizzard's going to do a lot of tunings as this expansion goes through. And finally, in the same row, we have Nether Tempest, which is being moved up a row. Nether Tempest will place a dot that will do 156 arcane damage to an enemy over 12 seconds and will hit nearby enemies within 10 yards. Damage increased by 69% per arcane charge. Is that value changed, or was that always like this? 69, huh? This could actually be pretty decent in a row. So this seems like a cleave row, right? You have the cleave together with Touch of the Magi with a focus on single target. You have Resonance, which can be used for long-term cleaves when you're barraging quite a lot. Or Nether Tempest to kind of put a dot on an enemy with some splash AoE. But mostly that insta-cast damage where you kind of want to maintain arcane charges for as long as possible. So we'll see how good this might be. This could be a really good combo together. But now it's a more even row of cleave. I'm pretty sure one of them is going to end up being numerically better, but I think it gives you a lot more options for your Arcane Mage either way. Then we have level 45 with a couple changes there. We have Reverberate. If Arcane Explosion hits at least 3 targets, it now has a 50% chance to generate an extra arcane charge, which is going to make this talent a lot more consistent in Mythic Plus dungeons. What is the chance from this prior? I don't really know, because I know this chance have gotten turned up. So this was not nearly as high as 50. I think it was like maybe 20, maybe 30. So 1 in 2 chance for it to generate an extra arcane charge is going to be really nice together with the Resonance. It's just going to make it a lot more consistent. On item in a row, we have Enlighten, which isn't anything new if you've been on the beta. Arcane damage dealt above 80% mana increased by 8%. Mana regen while below 70% mana is increased by 20%. So you get more mana regen when you're low on mana. You get more damage when you're high on mana. So with this one, it's going to be like the trade that you play for single target. But this does work now for AoE. 8% more damage is not that bad. And now we have Supernova in the same row, which is interesting. I don't really know how I feel about this one because, well, not like Supernova is a bad talent by any measure. 25, it's just that you don't really get to use it a lot unless you primarily PvP. Most of the arcane energy around the target enemy, dealing a bunch of arcane damage and knocking all enemies within 8 yards upwards. Primary target takes 100% more damage, so this does how much damage? About 1,000. I guess it's a nice insta-cast ability. So there's that. It's on a very short cooldown, so it could be maybe like a bursty option. Maybe it could be useful in dungeons, but it's just in the same row as Enlighten and Reverberate. This seems to be the best rating option. Maybe even a really good PvP op. Well, maybe like a Supernova would be that CC instead of damage increases. Because Reverberate gives you more resources. Enlightened, I guess, gives you resources for mana if you're low, but mostly the damage. And then Supernova, I don't know. I think the 8% damage increase might be stronger than what Supernova can provide, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe 8% is not that high, and it's totally worth going Supernova in some cases. Maybe it's a very instant cast heavy fight or something, or there's actually enemies that can be knocked up in the air for a little bit extra control. But yeah, that has been changed around a little bit in the row. Finally, level 50, we have Overpowered, which is the same, Arcane Orb, which is exactly the same, and then Time Anomaly has changed a bit. At any moment, you have a chance to gain Arcane Power for 8 seconds, gain Evocation for 1 second, or gain Time Warp for 6 seconds. This Time Warp ability, I'm pretty sure, can be used when you have Time Warp debuff. So at any moment, you could just gain a buff. It seems like every 1 second it has a chance to, or maybe a couple seconds it gives you a buff. There goes Arcane Power, which spawned a full duration Rune of Power. Wow, that's an interesting combo. I never even thought about that. Well, Time Anomaly might be really strong because now you can spawn more Rune of Powers everywhere. That could be really, really good. So I'm trying to see if I gain Evocation or maybe I can gain Time Warp while Time Warp debuff is up. Is it possible to gain Time Warp while Temporal Displacement is here? So I'm kind of going to just do a little bit of a play style through for Arcane and just kind of watch out for that buff to see if I get it at any moment. Of course, I could get any of the other buffs. Like there goes again another Arcane Power with a rune. That's pretty cool. I'm just trying to see if I can gain Time Warp while the Bloodlust debuff is up. Yeah, I'm getting Arcane Power, but I don't think I'm getting Time Warps at all. So that's very interesting. I'm surprised how often I'm getting this buff. But anyway, how would you play your Arcane Mage? I think you'll want to make sure you get Arcane Power, which will last 10 seconds. You'll also want to get Touch of the Magi, which will last 8 seconds. And I believe what you might want to do is actually Arcane Power first, in maybe like start with Arcane Blast, into Arcane Power, into Touch of the Magi, and then continue your damage. And then towards the last few Arcane Blasts, you'll want to make sure to get Presence of Mind rolling. Or maybe you want to get Touch of the Magi into Arcane Power and then Blast. I just think I'll cut down on the time spent inside of Touch of the Magi. That's going to be something, of course, for a mage to figure out at a later time. So we'll try Arcane Power into Touch of the Magi to get a bunch of blasts of Arcane Blast into the enemy and try to go for as many insta-casts as I can. One more maybe. I think I might have missed it there. But we're just going to kind of continue our damage from there and see where it goes. And again, a vacation. So I don't think it's possible to gain Temporal Displacement. At least I don't think it's possible to gain Time Warp if Temporal Displacement is up. But it does seem like it'll throw other buffs at you, as I've gotten Arcane Power quite a bit. So we're going through our burn phase as Arcane. Not perfect, not optimal, but doing okay, I'd say. Decent maybe. Go for that evocation right after to gain mana. And then we want to stay above 70% mana by using Barrage to dump our charges. Touch of the Magi back up, so we'll actually Arcane Barrage. We are a little bit under mana, but it's okay. We got ourselves a couple of the spells that don't cost mana. And here we are. We got Arcane Power back up there for a sec, so that's going to make our mana playstyle a little bit easier here, which is really, really cool. And then we can play around with mana a bit more. And this is going to be a bare bones mage, and there's actually traits that can make the playstyle even stronger. And I think you'll actually end up really dipping in mana, really getting as close to 70% as you can, because your mana recovery at a later time is actually going to be kind of crazy. There's a couple other talents that are available for Arcane, or abilities, ranks for mages that are available in the future. Like Arcane Barrage granting you 2% of your maximum mana per Arcane charge spent, so that's 8%. Then you have Presence of Mind, where Arcane Blast can now instantly cast 1 additional time, so 3 blasts back to back to maximize the damage of your Arcane Power. And then Arcane Power will have a 5-second extra duration, and my goodness, the Arcane Power procs like a madman. I mean, this is actually insane. It procs quite a lot. I don't understand why. I really don't understand why, but I'm getting all the bursts fairly early on. Let's try reversing Touch of the Magi into Arcane Power to see if I can min-max my damage. Mostly looking at the Arcane Power, but also trying to min-max it with Touch of the Magi. I probably do want to maximize the Touch of the Magi, though. I probably really do. Yeah, so this is potentially an Arcane Mage playstyle here, boys. This is really cool. I'm a huge fan of this. But this is going to be Arcane changes happening. I kind of like it. It sounds like Blizzard added some crazy new buttons to Arcane. We still have the same abilities of Arcane Blast. You have Touch of the Magi. We have, well, I guess this was added to suspension, but I mean, I've been playing it for a bit, so you kind of start considering as part of your toolkit. Missiles, Explosion, Barrage, all that stuff is still there. But now the interactions within abilities is a little different, so I do like it. I think it's going to be a little bit easier to pick up and play Arcane if you're a new player going into this expansion, but I think it'll definitely be easier to max out even more damage as an Arcane Mage within so far what Shadowlands have been able to bring us. I'm actually very excited to see how the spec progresses. I think the defensive component of Mirror Image is actually going to be very undervalued by a lot of players. This is actually quite a huge, like 20% damage reduction buff. That's huge, as mages don't really have a lot of abilities that reduce your damage. Besides, of course, your shield, and if you're Arcane, you get the invisibility, 60% damage reduction, and of course the immunity for Ice Block. But I think this is going to be quite an interesting ability, particularly in PvP, but also I could totally see it be used in Mythic Plus dungeons, where there's going to be mechanics where the mage is targeted, drop mirror images, 20% damage reduction. It might give you enough of that survivability to survive certain mechanics. So I think it's going to be really cool. More testing needs to be done for Arcane Mages, and by no measure am I saying it's perfect, but I do like it, what Blizzard has done with it so far, and I think it is generally an improvement. I'm actually super excited to put it all together. I wonder how GCD heavy is the Maldraxxus setup gonna feel. I think it might still feel very GCD heavy, because you do have to use Arcane Power, at least now drops a rune for you. You do have to use Touch the Mage, but at least it does use Charge Up. And you still need to use the ability for the Necrolord ability to become a bony boy, so your Arcane Blast do 10% more damage and have this cleave component to them. So removing your mirror images out of that situation does make it a bit easier, but it's still going to be one ability, second ability, Maldraxx's ability. So I guess it's better than having to charge up, drop a rune, Maldraxx's, mirror images, powered up, get your Touch of the Magi, and then you'll have like 2 Arcane Blasts with everything available. Now at least you might be able to get 3 or 4. I know it's not perfect, but it's still better, and maybe Blizzard will still make updates. Maybe they'll change the Necrolord ability to maybe make it off GCD. I think something like that would be really cool and would synergize pretty well into this play style. But this is definitely Blizzard doing, I think, a pretty good job cleaning up a lot of this GCD stuff. If they are going to keep abilities on GCD, adding a little bit extra power to them for Arcane in particular is going to be really cool. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about the Arcane Mage changes that happened as of recently? Let me know if you like them. I'm definitely excited as someone who wants to play Arcane in the next expansion. I'm actually super excited with some of the stuff that Blizzard has done so far. But thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. And I'll see all of you in another video.